It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and apologies for the lighting problem. There's sun. Daywalker. But yeah, we're talking about false victimhood, aka covert narcissism, today. And I'm going to use an example from a comment. Now, the person is likely going to recognize the comment and not take it well because I made a couple references to this comment on Twitter because I'm like, oh, come on. And this person I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say this is learned behavior, which is why I'm using an example, because I think people don't realize in some cases what this behavior does. It's learned behavior. Most often, I'm going to go out on a limb and say from people's mothers. And I do think sometimes, especially in cases of intergenerational trauma, abuse behaviors are passed on and people don't realize they're abusive. To them, it's normal. So this is not an attempt to shame anybody. I'm not saying anybody's name. So the only way anybody knows that this person said it is if they out themselves. They don't have to because they deleted the comment, right? So they are in control here. Now, covert abuse is very, very real. And covert abuse is a mind fuck because it's covert, right? It is some of the most long-term damaging abuse a person can go through. And men are as likely to be the target of this kind of abuse as women. Because, like I said, this is mom stuff, right? This is not, traditionally or archetypically or hegemonic male socialization. This is feminized behavior. Now, men do it more and more because with zero tolerance of aggression and violence now, what's left? Well, more traditionally feminine forms. Yeah. The circle of shit. It's the wheel of nonsense. It's the leaps in thinking. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. What happens with false victimhood or victim abusers is they portray themselves as innocent. They're blameless. They're wounded, right? They're caught up innocently in the poor behavior of other people, usually people from the past or the person right in front of them or both. And they're only capable of seeing their own hurt, which is a complete lack of empathy, right? A person who is legitimately victimized, often you'll hear, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, or they'll be, look, I just want it to stop. I don't want anybody to be punished. I just want it to stop, right? Not, oh, woe is me. Oh, you're doing it. And those use of yours, big red flag, okay? Because it's one thing to say, I feel this right now. This is what I'm going through. It's another thing to go, you're doing this to me. Big, big difference. Again, learned behavior. And if you catch this in yourself or you have been the victim of covert abuse, let's talk. Help support this channel. Please become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, so I can keep doing this important but unpopular work. Patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. I'm going to have to up the goal for the coffee support. More and more people are, getting financial crunches. It sucks. It sucks. I wish there was another way to monetize this thing. But for all the let's talk, all the talk about mental health, there aren't a lot of sponsor supports for this kind of work. And if you become a patron now, there is going to be a major focus grouping thing for some stuff coming up. So now's a good time to become a patron. You are a part of shaping this channel. So let's get to the example right now. And again, I'm going to caveat again. This is to call out the behavior, not the person. Now, why? Because this person is already claiming victimhood because of my Twitter feed. All right. And we're going to break this down, and I'm going to show you how under scrutiny false victimhood falls apart. And again, I am not saying this person is a bad person. I am saying they have learned bad behaviors, and it's making them miserable. Okay. This was in response to Monday's video. And I'm worried about your group's support, partially because I've seen how it can be corrupted, flag word run, but also because I follow you on Twitter and I see how you are on there. It begins sometimes with people whose arguments seem valid or that I might agree with. I am worried that mid-session I might fuck up, say the wrong thing, and now I am the target, except it isn't through a screen with words, but in a video on call where I can't escape. I was a target of a group before, though it wasn't for long. That former men's group hounded me after I left for abandoning them. I can't go through that again. Let's break it down. Now, why am I mocking? Let's break it down. Okay. First of all, it was very easy to express concerns without starting from, I see how you are on there. I don't know how many times I've said this. It's Twitter. There's a big difference between YouTube, where I can talk for a half hour and not be interrupted, except for like Cthulhu and Snorlax back there, to people coming in, calling me everything from a vile woman to a man and everything in between and beyond. Obviously that changes reactions. Also, Twitter is text. There's no tone of voice. There's no facial expressions. But people keep using this as this weapon against me, as if it's going to change what I do at all, right? I see how you are on there. You notice there's no detail to the accusation, just I see how you are, right? Actual legitimate concerns contain information, right? Here's exactly the issue. Here's how it impacted me. That's missing, right? Sometimes with people whose arguments seem valid or that I might agree with, not that I do agree with, that I might agree with, but also seem valid. It has nothing to do with the approach, with the fact that they called me dumb or some other name, or the fact that the argument is completely asinine. Again, I don't know what they're talking about. It's that accusation that has no detail, therefore a person can't defend themselves. Mark of covert abuse. Okay, again, calling out the behavior, not the person. But look at how this wraps in on itself again. Okay, I am worried that mid-session I might fuck up. Record scratch. Okay, so you fuck up. Fucking up is fucking up. That means you made a mistake. You cannot make a mistake and expect to just get away with it. A mistake is a mistake. There's some pretty simple rules on those bubbles. And first of all, it's a fucking men's panel. Why would I be leading it? Men's panel. It's a men's group. I sit in on the first bubbles just to make sure, the bubblehead, the facilitator, gets off to an okay start, but I don't run them. So how is my personality or the way I am have anything to do with this? One, but I might fuck up, say the wrong thing, and now I am the target. No, you're a person who wronged or upset somebody else. You're not the target. This hypothetical is y'all fucked up, said the wrong thing. A person getting upset with that is not targeting you. Listen to yourself. And then this is when the violin starts, okay? Except it isn't through a screen with words, but in video, on call, where I can't escape. Okay, one, there's no requirement to be in a video. Two, I already talked about the fact that we're doing stuff so that people can communicate via chat to, ease into this. So these concerns have already been addressed, but you can't escape on Zoom. Zoom, the thing with the leave call button in the bottom right corner of the screen. You can't escape. Really. And again, I'm using an amount of mockery here. It's not actually mockery. It's being incredulous. Like, the reason I'm using this is it's so far over the line that it's a great example of how, covert abuse works. Because this is so absurd, right? Can't escape a Zoom call. Again, I'm going to say that line again. I am worried that mid-session I might fuck up, say the wrong thing, and now I am the target, except it isn't through a screen with words, but in video on call where I can't escape. Come on. Now, anybody who's seen... First of all, again, not me moderating it. Adam's a really nice guy. But if anybody's seen how I work on Twitch when it's live and someone fucks up, they always get a chance to, clarify or apologize or anything like that. I don't know what people think they're escaping in a Zoom call. But then, oh my God, the crisis completely flips. It's now, I see how you are. I can't escape, but I was a target of a group before, though it wasn't for long. Okay, can you not escape, or did it go away quickly? But that former men's group hounded me after I left for abandoning them. Okay, can you not escape, or did people get upset that you abandoned them? Which is it? It can't be both. Either you left and that was treated like a bad thing, or you couldn't leave and that was the bad thing. The two things cannot exist, right? And then, they hounded them after I left, but it wasn't for long. I can't go through that again. I can't go through temporary discomfort where people got upset with me, but it resolved itself. That's what parsing that actually is. People got upset with them with bad behavior and, obviously something, but there is not a single shred of accountability there. That's covert abuse. You are the problem, this person says to me. But, this men's group was also the problem. But Zoom, I can't escape. They're the problem. Have I made my point here? This is how it works. this is absolutely how it works. I know this person probably believed what they were saying at the time, which is why I'm calling this stuff out. Because if you actually break this down, you see where the things are twisted. But this is what happened. People are subjected to covert abuse. It becomes normal. So they inflict covert abuse on other people. Another awesome one was on Twitter. This was just so what? Now, I'm using a man doing it and a woman doing it so that this person was accusing me of nonsense, but I said, show me where I said that. It's on Twitter, right? The response was, I'm not participating in your constant gaslighting anymore. Asking her to show me where I said that is constant gaslighting, covert abuse, false victimhood, right? Because this is what the person said to me earlier in that conversation. This was a person who took issue with the fact I said bullying instead of on the spectrum of violence, right? Which I didn't mean. But if I wanted to say on the spectrum of violence, I would have said it. But bullying, some bullies punch you in the face, right? This person took issue with, I didn't go far enough for them. Heaven forbid I didn't have the right opinions. And decided it was a good idea to use Hitler and the Holocaust in this. And I said, I'm Jewish. Line crossed. And they, of course, weren't Jewish and kept crossing that line. And I said, I set a boundary. I asked you to take it back. You haven't. Come on. And this was the response. You are certainly allowed to set boundaries. If at any point I ever dehumanize you, feel free to exercise your agency. I have not done so. I genuinely enjoy your content. I had one small critique about word usage, so let's calm down and remember we're both on the same team. Which is pretty textbook gaslighting, and then she accused me of gaslighting. Because dropping Hitler and the Holocaust is not one small critique about word usage, right? But this is stuff that people based in, right? And they don't see that it's wrong because it was done to them. It was effective to them. And unfortunately, when people feel powerless, especially when they're traumatized, they do. And this is where it's difficult because even if there is no intent to abuse, even though they are not aware of how their words impact other people, it does cause harm. It does perpetuate the cycle of abuse. And part of the reason I am being so overt about this is people can no longer say they didn't know, right? This person won't come at me straight, but in some ways, these things are cries for help. So this is a test. Are they going to be accountable for the way they communicate? Or are they going to keep victiming all over the place and now knowingly continue the covert abuse? And this is what maturity looks like. Maturity and, emotional adulting, actually not abusive behavior, means saying things you recognize probably will sting a little, but it's the minimum amount of sting, right? It's not being mean. It's making it absolutely certain that the person has the ability to correct their behavior. And too often, this doesn't happen because of all the false victimization and the covert abuse, right? people get, ghosted, they get shunned, they get ostracized, they get canceled, and they have no idea why. And because everything is so weird this way, I'm Gen X. I'm very late Gen X, but I'm socialized Gen X. And, we're known for our performative apathy. We're not really apathetic, but we don't have this, everybody has to like me or it's violence thing. And, that's why we come off as apathetic, because it's like, you don't like me? Oh, well, and then we're accused of being heartless monsters. Just because we choose to not give people certain access to our hearts does not mean we're heartless. It means we value our heart enough to restrict access only to people who earn it. And if anybody thinks they're going to get welcomed into a group after they tell the organizer of said group, I see how you are on Twitter. Really? Is that a good start? Does that really make you seem interested? Because here's how it looked to me, as somebody who's been through that gauntlet and done the training and learned the hard way, okay? When you go into something saying, I'm worried that mid-session I might fuck up and now I'm the target, what that's doing is setting the table, right? If I let this person into a group now, I'm basically agreeing to let them fuck up with impunity. Because otherwise they'll be the target, right? Any correction at all will be seen as victimization. No, I'm sorry, you're a bad fit. You're not at the point where it is fair to other people for you to be there. And that's on you. If you're coming into a group setting, the other people in the group have to matter. And that's the problem with covert abuse, right? Again, covert abuse is marked by a complete lack of empathy for other people, only being able to see their own hurt, right? A covert abuser is not capable of seeing their own part in something. Now, taking responsibility for your part in something does not mean it's your fault. And it does not mean you're the driver. It's okay, I can see out how I could have handled this part differently. However, that does not mean I deserve what I got. That's how an adult, a mature person comes at things, right? And here's the thing. Accountability actually makes you happier. If you're constantly, oh, woe is me, if you're constantly blaming everybody else for, if you want everybody to say it's okay to fuck up, no, sometimes it's not okay to fuck up, right? It really depends on the fuck up. You say something, someone says, I don't appreciate. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. What went wrong there? That's a tiny fuck up, right? Easily recoverable. You say something, I don't appreciate that. Well, I don't care. Well, that's a completely different thing, right? And when a person is going, I couldn't escape, but then they hounded me because I abandoned them, but only for a short while. See, this is why I worry about this person, because someone has to believe that series of fallacies in order to write that in public. And that's being deep in victimhood. And the thing that's great about God of War Ragnarok is they basically depict Freya like that at times. She is so lacking in empathy for other people because she is so messed up. And I really give the creators of that game credit for going there with a female character, because there's one part where Freyr, her brother, is she's giving him shit for, you didn't come look for me, you didn't come after me. And he literally says, they set my arm on fire, and you see all the scar tissue on its arm. That is textbook not having empathy for other people. And there was a point where I was in severe PTSD. I did that a few times. I was a real jerk to other people. And that's the D in PTSD, right? When you are disordered in your thinking and actions, that's what you got to get under control, which is why I say, and it's not therapy, don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are, right? The reason the military wants to change it to PTS, right, is because a lot of, or they do say PTS, a lot of soldiers just walk around wounded. They're not displaying any overt symptoms. They're not going around telling people, you didn't come find me, after their arm got set on fire, right? They're just silently suffering. And I do think in a lot of ways, you know, that's a fair distinction to make. And that, you know, that is owning your shit. That's someone acknowledging that everything is not okay. But, you know, we're also acknowledging that these are people keeping their shit together, and the stereotypes of the average veteran with PTS, you know, being violent and all that stuff. It's just not so. They're most likely to hurt themselves, not other people, right? And that's the thing. Why is this covert abuse actually abuse? Because it's demanding your target. And in this case, you know, the reason I used this example was, I see how you are, like, just right for it, right? The structure of this is demanding I twist myself into pretzels to convince the speaker that I will be better, I will be kinder, I will be nicer. Because, you know, if not, oh, I can't go through that again. It's doing it wrong to point out the contradictions and the BS. That's being an abuser. But it's not. A person does not have to eat shit when it's clearly shit, right? Pledge does not mean donate, right? You cannot claim you didn't escape. And oh, then I was hounded, but not for very long. Okay, so you escaped. And it's real easy to escape Zoom. In order, and again, there is a difference between someone just not handling legitimately bad stuff well, like in the case of Freya and God of War Ragnarok, and someone actually creating the problem and not being accountable for it. And why am I saying that this particular person is creating problems and not being accountable for it? Well, they could have come into this and said, okay, what happens if I make a mistake? What's your process for that? You know, I mean, first of all, the assumption, again, that I'd be running a men's group is absurd. But they could have come on it non-combatively, non-accusatory, right? what happens if I make a mistake? And we could have just told them. Instead, I see how you are. That's creating a problem. That's creating an unnecessary conflict. They're responsible for that. If they abandoned a group they committed to, they're responsible for that. If they're traumatized and they don't have their own safety plan to the point that you can't hit leave call on Zoom, and just for everyone to be clear, no one has to use their real name. No one has to have their camera on, and nobody gets each other's email address. We've even taken out a new email address for the facilitators. So, I mean, there's a lot of respect for people's, privacy. If you go on the form, you see all the steps we've taken to safeguard people's privacy. This person didn't do that, even though the links are in the description box below the video. They could have checked it out. They're not responsible for any of that. And that means the problem exists, at least in part, because the false victim created the problem. Which means there's no solution until they're accountable, and they're just going to stay miserable. Because for anything to really get better for anyone, and this is true, when you're unhappy and you're feeling out of control, you don't want to hear this. Trust me, I know. But the only thing you can do if you're not happy with your situation is really understand what's going on in your situation. Take ownership and responsibility for how you're contributing to it and change. And I mean, in my case, I needed to learn to set better boundaries, which is what I'm doing with shit like this. And part of setting better boundaries, and this is a constant work in progress for me, is recognizing there's a difference between being nice and being a schmuck. And I'm not nice to the people who have earned it if I give people who haven't earned it just carte blanche to behave badly. And when someone is setting the expectation that they be allowed to come into a group, quote, fuck up and say the wrong thing, and not be corrected, or in their words, targeted, that would be me giving them permission to abuse other people. I'm not going to do that. So all the saying, I see how you are, it's completely lacking in self-awareness. You can't come at somebody combatively like that and then complain that they're combative on a medium that's just this being Twitter, inherently a thing that, you got to be tough on Twitter. Especially with the kind of shit I take. And the fact that we even have to explain this is really shown how much, intergenerational abuse and, really just really bad socialization is out there. Because in a world where people are properly supported, in a world that, and where I come from as a Gen Xer, I see, the sort of brand of apathy versus the actual apathy that Gen Z and millennials suffered, where no one corrected them when it was small. And so they became afraid of correction. It's all just, pass them through. everybody's friends. No one's allowed to not like each other. And it just seemed to make people more afraid of making a mistake instead of, how I was socialized, which is you don't assume there's a problem until there's a problem. You rely on each other to say when you don't like something. None of these, he didn't read my nonverbal cues, right? In my day, there was no such thing as a nonverbal cue. And yeah, in an ideal world, people are people are aware of that, but sorry, high degree of neurodivergency in these groups, that cannot be expected. It has to be, if something bothers you, say what bothers you, say how it made you feel, don't attack the other person or assume ill intent. Real simple, right? And then the person goes, all right, didn't know, I'll keep that in mind, I'm sorry, done, problem solved. But that basic socialization hasn't been taught. And so we get this shit. And the only thing we can do is, remedial socialization 101, which is not gonna feel good for someone who has this far to come because they think that behavior was acceptable and couldn't even stand by their comment when their mistakes were pointed out to them. On a very base level, if you like my YouTube content, you don't like my Twitter content, don't follow me on Twitter, continue to watch me on YouTube. Simple. Some people are better in different formats than others. Problem solved. But it is just absolutely unfair to ask not even ask. This person didn't even have the benefit of asking for something. It was, I'm worried, I'm afraid, I can't go through this again. Okay, go through what? That you couldn't escape or that you were hounded for not long? That was completely unnecessary. But, this is just such an obvious example of stuff I see every day. And it turns people into the bad guy who are just setting boundaries and unwilling to be manipulated by this junk. And I could have done with this the more, millennial socialized acceptable thing and just said nothing. But would that really actively give this person a chance to be less miserable? No. So I'm telling them what they did wrong to give them a chance to correct, which is what they technically were hinting at they wanted in the kindest interpretation of what they seem to be hinting at, but not the most likely. And so I'm actually giving them maximum benefit of the doubt handling it like this. They get 40 minutes on how to solve their problem here. But what I really think the expectation is most likely based on the way they approach this, and again, most likely not guaranteed, is that they want advance permission to fuck up and not own it. Now, if that's wrong, and they're willing to follow rules that respect other people, well, they're welcome in the group. Again, that I will not be running because I'm not a man. But that's respect for your other group members, man. It's absolutely unrealistic if you fuck up and say the wrong thing to not be called on it. It's a group that everyone is supposed to feel supported, not just you. And if your expectation is that, or you can't deal, that's a you problem, not a group problem. And things are not going to get better until you acknowledge that, recognize what it means, and make some changes. I do believe there's hope for you. I don't think you're a bad person. I think you have some bad code. And you don't realize that just asking for what you want is going to be much more effective than these bullshit accusations, hinting and guilting. And, you know, this one person is an example that other people, if you feel triggered because you see your own behavior in this, well, make the change today. It's possible. All right. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron if you like this approach. You know, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K, or sign up if you need some help going, how do I be more assertive instead of a covert abuser, right? Coffee.com/Leanna K. Form for Leanna Cares and the Bubbles is in the description box below if you want a group with rules where you will not be at the mercy of covert abusers. Join. New year. We're going to be doing this. Thanks for watching and be well.